Hello, I'm Dr. Kelly MacCath-Moran. I'm a folklore scholar, author, and musician, and I'm presently writing a book for storytellers of all stripes titled The Storyteller's Guide to Folklore, which will help you bring the principles of folkloristics to the storytelling craft. This is the second in a 6-part series of short videos on the folkloristics of spellcraft, charms and curses, and the ways you can use what folklorists know about charms and curses to make your storytelling stronger and richer magically and culturally. You might recall that I gave you folklore scholar Jonathan Roper's definition of the charm in the last video, and we talked about language and verbal lore. I'm going to go back to that definition now, and we're going to talk about belief this time. I'm going to read over here. So, folklore scholar Jonathan Roper writes that charms have been credited with the power to bring about changes in health, fortune, safety, and emotional state. And he also writes that charms could be defined as traditional verbal forms intended by their effect on supernature to bring about change in the world in which we live. So there are two elements of belief here that we need to unpack. First, there's some plea to the supernatural, and then there's some intercession by the supernatural to change something in our world. So the charmer and the person being charmed both have to believe that the charmer can ask the supernatural world for something and get something back. Now, that ask can be any number of things, and it can go to any number of powers. You might remember Goddess Lift Up Your Shining Face and Find For Me a Parking Space, my favorite pagan charm. It illustrates this dual element of charms and belief really, really well, because in the first half of the charm, the charmer, usually me, asks the goddess, lift up your shining face, right? So I'm reaching into the supernatural world and I'm asking for something. And what I'm asking for is the second half of what we're talking about here, and find for me a parking space. So when you're writing charms and you're bringing that belief component in, you can bring any number of supernatural powers in, and you can bring any number of effects in, but you've got to have them both. And so you can have the goddess bringing you a parking space. You can have a spirit of nature curing your cancer. You can have a god of the sea bringing you wealth. But it's got to be both. Would you like to know more? You can follow me at folkloreandfiction.com, and you can come back next week when I'm going to be looking at an old Germanic charm called the Merseburg Charm 2 for a Wounded Horse. And we're going to look at the ways these principles of folkloristics of the charm play out in this piece of traditional literature and spellcraft.